You know that classic image of a hacker, right? The shadowy figure in a hoodie, typing furiously in a dark room? Well, let's just forget that for a second. Today, we're going to dive into what really makes a hacker tick. It turns out it's one essential trait, and it's the engine behind both cybercrime and cybersecurity. Let's get into it. So, let me just ask you this straight up. What pops into your head when you hear the word hacker? Is it some digital phantom just out there causing chaos? Yeah, but what if I told you the real story is actually way, way more interesting than that? Because here's the thing. At the end of the day, the fundamental driver isn't some grand evil plan. It's curiosity, a really intense, almost boundless curiosity. It's the desire to look at a locked door and not just see a barrier, but to immediately wonder about the mechanism inside. How does it work? And that really brings us to our first big idea here. It's all about curiosity, not malice. To really wrap our heads around hacking, we have to look past the headlines, past the consequences, and focus on that initial spark. What gets them started? See, at its absolute core, hacking is the simple act of asking, what if, over and over again. A hacker doesn't just see a login page, they see a puzzle. They're wondering, what happens if I type something completely unexpected here? They're driven by this deep need to understand a system so thoroughly that they could practically take it apart and put it back together again. Now, this is where it gets super interesting. You've got this fundamental split in the road. The curiosity is the same, but the intent, well, that defines everything. A black hat hacker uses that curiosity for personal gain or just pure destruction. But a white hat, an ethical hacker, uses the exact same skills to find flaws and help strengthen systems for everyone. It's not about what you can do, it's about what you choose to do with that knowledge. So how does this intense curiosity actually play out? Well, it all starts with seeing the digital world in a completely different way. Where most of us see apps and websites, a hacker sees a vast, explorable map. And this just nails the mindset perfectly. Where we see a web page, they see a landscape. Where we see a simple button, they see a potential doorway. It's all about looking beyond the polished surface and charting all the hidden pathways that connect everything behind the scenes. And to see how this map works, let's just take a simple website. It's not one single thing. It's a stack of layers. First, you've got the front end. That's the visual part you click on. But underneath that, you've got the back end, the brain, the servers, the databases. Then there are the communication channels like messengers carrying information back and forth. And finally, the most unpredictable layer of them all, us, the human element. Each layer is a different part of the map to explore. Right, so the crucial point here is that this kind of layered thinking leads to incredible discoveries. Someone, driven by that what-if curiosity, looked at a login form and instead of typing a password, they typed in a little piece of database code. And the system, which was totally not expecting a command, got confused and just spilled its secrets. That simple act revealed a massive vulnerability called SQL injection, which was for years one of the most common ways to break into websites. Okay, so exploring this digital map isn't just about having the right mindset. You also need the right tools, right? The tools that turn curiosity into a real craft, that let you see what's invisible to the naked eye. And that is the perfect way to think about hacker tools. Seriously, they aren't some kind of magic wand that just breaks into systems. They're more like precision instruments. Think microscopes or stethoscopes that let an explorer see, listen, and really understand the inner workings of a system. So you have tools like Wireshark, which lets you literally watch the data flowing through a network, kind of like seeing the letters in the mail. Or Nmap, which helps you discover all the open doors and windows, the digital ports that services use to communicate. All they do is make the invisible visible, and that's always the first step to understanding any system. So we've talked about the curiosity, we've talked about the map, and we've talked about the tools. But now we come to maybe the most important part of the whole journey, the choice, that ethical fork in the road. And this is where our white hat hackers come in. They're often called penetration testers or pen testers, and I absolutely love this definition. They are professional burglars. Companies literally pay them to find the weak spots, to break into their own systems so that they can fix those holes before a real criminal stumbles upon them. But, and this is a huge but, to do this, they operate under a very strict code of conduct. It's all about permission and responsibility. You have to respect privacy, report what you find directly to the company, and never, ever test a system you don't have explicit written permission to test. This code is the bright line that separates a security professional from a criminal. This whole ethical divide wasn't just created overnight. It was shaped over decades of trial and error. Back in 1988, the Morris worm accidentally brought down a huge chunk of the early internet, which forced us to create the first real cybercrime laws. Then, a decade later, you have the famous hacker Kevin Mitnick, who went from the FBI's most wanted list to a top security consultant, proving that the best poacher can become the best gamekeeper. This constant push and pull, this tension between breaking and building, is really what has defined modern cybersecurity. So why does any of this matter to you? Well, because understanding this mindset gives you a powerful new lens, a new way to see the digital world that you live in every single day. And this, right here, this is the core takeaway. The real power isn't in the breaking, it's in the understanding. Because when you understand how something works, you can protect it, you can improve it, and that's where the purpose comes from, channeling that same curiosity for good.
And you can actually try this yourself completely safely and legally. In pretty much any web browser, you can right-click on a page and choose Inspect or Inspect Element. A little panel will pop up showing you the website's HTML code. It's like the blueprint for what you're seeing. It's a totally harmless way to peek behind the curtain and start flexing that curiosity muscle.
So I want you to start asking questions. Next time you type your password into a box and hit enter, just pause for a second and wonder, what just happened? Where did my data just go? How is it being protected on its journey? What systems did it just travel through to get there? That simple act of questioning, that's it. That's the spark. That is ethical curiosity, and it is the absolute foundational seed from which every single cybersecurity professional grows. It doesn't start with code. It starts with a question. So that's our look into the hacker mindset. Next time, we're going to see what happens when that curiosity slams into our own human errors, as we explore how something as simple as a single weak password can bring an entire system crashing down. Thanks for joining me.